Hello, this is Pretty Guardian, and today I am excited to be talking to you about my favorite RPG of 2025 so far, and that is Avowed. This is an action RPG made by Obsidian, the same team that did Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, Pillars of Eternity Deadfire. They did this one in a style that's more similar to the Outer Worlds. Combat is very reminiscent of like Skyrim, Fallout New Vegas, some of the other action RPGs that they've been involved with in the past. But it's set in a fantasy setting of Aora, which is the same world from the Pillars of Eternity games. In it, you play as an envoy of the Adirian Empire, and your character is also a godlike. Within the world of Aora, certain people are touched by the gods during birth, and they take on physical aspects of the gods that they're touched by. So this character is going to have fungal mushroom growths on its head that you get to select which ones you want during the character creation process, and you're also able to hide them. All the NPCs and stuff pretty much know that your character is a godlike, and you're coming to the Living Lands as an envoy of the Adir Empire to kind of tame the lands and figure out the mystery of this plague that has swept them called the Dream Scourge. You do have 4 companions who will join you along this adventure. The first one is named Kai, and he is a former member of the Rowatalon Navy. The first zone of the game is called Dawn Shore, and you meet Kai the moment you arrive in Claviger's Landing. He acts kind of like a tank. I primarily used his Fire and Ire ability, where he blasts the enemy with his blunderbuss and pulls the aggro. The second character that you get is named Marius. He is a Dwarven Ranger. I didn't find Marius to be a compelling character. He's fine to use early on because you can have 2 companions fight with you, so having that extra buddy out there is better than it just being you and Kai. But his quest line doesn't happen until late in the game, and his skills don't really add much value compared to Giada or Yatsley. Giada is the third companion that you get, and she is an animancer. Her character was skilled and confident, and I enjoyed having her in my party. She is the primary support character in the game and can buff and heal your party. Between the 2 of us, our party was almost unkillable. One thing that I did not like about the way that she was implemented into the game is that you don't really get her until the end of the second zone, but the quest lines and stuff that are most impactful to her storyline do kind of happen throughout that zone. So in a weird way, it feels like she's not really involved in her own storyline. Then you get Yatsley, and I was not really inclined to like her at first. Her coloration just seemed a little bit outrageous, and I felt like she was kind of out of place. She was very flirtatious in a way that I didn't really enjoy at first, but eventually she really did grow on me. I think she's a lot of fun. In my mind, she was kind of played by Kristen Chenoweth. Yatsley is the last character that you get, and she joins the party in the 3rd zone. Her name sounds like something you would yell at the end of a dice game. She is a mage and can do some decent DPS, crowd control, and has an ability that will uncover little magically concealed treasures around the map. If you're enjoying this video so far, please feel free to give me a like and a subscribe or a comment or some sort of engagement, because I am trying to grow my channel and it definitely means a lot to me. In addition to the main quest, there are side quests, bounties that can be hunted down, treasure maps that you can use to find hidden treasure chests, and numerous different vistas around the map that are worth exploring. The map starts out covered in a fog of war that you uncover as you explore. Don't get too caught up on this though, because there are many areas of the map that are not intended to be traversable. It gives the illusion of being a big open zone, but you really have corridors that you're funneled into and areas that are much more like curated levels than open zones. In many ways, this is nice though, because Obsidian paid attention to make the areas fun to navigate, jumping across cliffs and platforming, and there is a high density of content and things to do as you traverse the map. Combat is real time and feels very similar to a game like Skyrim. There are different weapons that you can use that all have their own trade-offs, such as a sword that deals average damage and stun and has an average stamina cost, but maces have high damage and stun, but a comparably high stamina cost. There's lots of different weapons you can choose from, but the mace does really good stun damage, so it's really good for breaking down enemies' defenses and then locking them into place. And then I also picked up some healing abilities. So between those two things, I kind of envisioned my character as like a cleric of this god that they represent. Attacking with a weapon and blocking both cost stamina from your stamina bar. You have basic attacks and power attack. If you run out of stamina, then you become winded and are briefly unable to attack or defend. On the left-hand side, you'll see your health bar in red and your essence bar just below that. Essence is used for your abilities and magic. There are 3 main ability trees in the game: Fighter, Ranger, and Mage. You also have a skill tree of godlike abilities that you'll unlock during the course of the game. I'm not really sure what the game designers intended player builds to actually look like in this game. Due to the high number of passives, Fighter and Ranger don't feel as fully baked as the Mage tree. But in terms of practicality, I think most people would be picking at least a couple of abilities from multiple trees. For example, Toughness gives you a 20% boost to health, which is a big bonus for only 1 skill point, and I think it would be beneficial even if you went the Mage or the Ranger route. Throughout the game are a number of unique weapons and armor that have special perks and enchantments. This was one of my favorite parts of the gear system. You can use the enchantments to round out a special build or just make your character into a total beast. There are different tiers of gear that you can get, and within each of those tiers are 3 different steps. The higher your tier level, the stronger your gear is. But if you're fighting against an enemy that has a higher tier level than you, they're going to be a lot stronger than you. And a lot of times, through skill and using the mechanics of the game, you can still put up a really good fight against them, but it does kind of create a soft lock where you don't necessarily want to explore areas where the creatures are too much stronger than you, because it's going to be a lot harder to get through those encounters. After a long day of adventuring, you can set up camp. At camp, you can have conversations with your party members, cook food for healing or buffs, upgrade your weapons, or upgrade the enchantments on your unique weapons. You use materials that you gathered from around the environment to do so. One of the side activities in the game is gathering pieces of totems from the other gods. When you've gathered all the pieces, you now have a trophy to display back at your base that gives you a huge buff and unlocks extra dialogue where you can hear the different gods from the previous Pillars of Eternity games, and they'll add context to the adventure that you're undertaking in the Living Lands. The development team was very intentional about limiting the scope of the game. You see it in a number of areas, for example, how the maps are not quite as open and explorable as they first seem. The ability trees are very limited compared to Skyrim or Kingdoms of Amalur. You only have 4 companions who also have very limited ability options. The enemy variety is on the limited side as well. You do fight a lot of the same stuff, bears and Zarups everywhere you go. I actually didn't find the enemy variety to be bad though. First off, Zarups are just iconic to the Pillars of Eternity lore as far as I'm concerned, but you have specters, undead, bandits, mushrooms, multiple variants of all the enemy types that you encounter, and they introduce new enemy types even up to the very end of the game. I think it had a better enemy variety than Dragon Age Veilguard or even the original Pillars of Eternity. The big thing though is that enemies don't respawn after you kill them, so I never got bored of seeing a specific enemy type. I did want to address some of the controversy surrounding this game without diving too deeply into it because I don't want that to be the focus of this video. But basically before it came out, there were snippets of the game showing the character creation process and how you get to select the pronouns for your character. And there's a lot of people who hate woke games. They don't like trans people. And I feel like the game took a lot of hate for that very specific reason without even getting into all of the other stuff that the game has going on. And certain writers involved in the game kind of spoke up about it, and there was a lot of backlash about the stuff that they were saying. What I wanted to say about it were two things. First off, when you're making a game like this, I think that you have to take feedback, even negative feedback, in the most constructive light possible. And the stuff that is not constructive, just ignore it and kind of push it to the back of your mind. I don't think that the people who spoke out in defense of this game from the development team should have done that. It's kind of just like adding fuel to a fire. And when you're producing a work of art like a game, let the game speak for itself. And that's one thing that I think this game did very well, is speaking for itself. You can still get a lot of your themes and ideas across without having to have an above the game argument with people. You see it in all kinds of quests that are in the game. For example, there's one where you're defending people's right to get an abortion, and then there's just the general thematic framing of the Adirans being colonizers coming to this land and disrupting the lives of the people there. With this focus on limiting the scope of the game, the developers made statements comparing it to the original Outer Worlds, which was about a 20 to 30 hour game. So I went in thinking this would be like at most a 30 to 40 hour RPG. My first playthrough actually took me about 70 hours. Each zone has multiple possible endings for the people of that area based on the decisions that you make and the quests that you complete. My current plan is to wait for a year or so as Obsidian continues to update this game, and then I'm gonna do another playthrough to see how the story could have unfolded, and I wanna try out other possible builds. Before playing the game, I would have thought that the $70 price tag was outrageous. I do think it was priced higher with the intent for Microsoft to funnel people into buying the Game Pass service and playing it on there. However, after playing the game, I think it's absolutely worth $70. This is actually a fairly big, in-depth game and can provide the kind of graphics, voice acting, and gameplay that warrants a AAA price tag. I also think it would be relatively easy for them to add in more dialogue options, companions, unique weapons, and future DLC expansion zones that would put this on the level of something like Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you so much for watching along today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, this is Pretty Guardian, logging out.